How we going, YouTube? Uh, okay. Unless I get robot spams in the fucking chat, I'll leave it on. Simple but complicated. The chips that I use, or I don't want to say the chips that I use, but the design of chips I use, because generally speaking, I'll always create stuff from scratch if I can. Why are you not? There we go. First of all, let's get some of the basics out of the way. If you've got it in your hand, holding the in your hand on the imp. If you've left shoulder or L1, it'll snap to a surface. So doing that allows you to go scope in or scope out. And when you've attached it to an object, you'll see it gets this little cable. So you know that's related to that. That chip will now is parented to that. So if I back out, if I try and edit that, for example, it comes up as a group. But if I scope in, I can then bring up that. That doesn't necessarily mean what I do to this chip will affect this. It just means that if I move this, that the chip's parented to it. So when I back out, if I move that around and then I scope in, it's still attached. That's all it means. But the main ones that I've been using lately is like a delay switch and like a meter switch, if you want to call it that, like a life meter, hunger meter, energy meter, that sort of stuff. Those are the two main ones I've been using. Now, obviously, just a toggle or a switch that's a selection switch and stuff like that. That's already in the when you open this up. If between three different characters, plonk it down, choose the choices. Whatever the input is goes into there, and that chooses a selection. The main ones I've been using is obviously a selector, calculator. Oh my god, these PlayStation controllers are giving me the shit. Okay, we want a counter, and then the knots, and what I call a pass-through. They just call them nodes, but technically that's a node. So I call it a pass-through because it doesn't actually do anything. It just sends a signal in one side, out the other. If I open it up, it's got zero functionality. Technically, it does have this, like this here, and you can change this, and you can use this color wheel as a color selector. So if you want to put, for example, a way to change the color of this cube, for example, you could wire it up into here, just run that line, control to there. It will now pair up those two together. So if, for example, this one here is on that, whenever I change the color here, it changes the color of that. So that's really handy in that aspect. And I use that when it comes to making like a tan or something like that. Excuse me. So just say if we set it to black and we want to add a tan. The easiest way I find to do that would be, let's grab a new one. Like this, open it up. It would have that there. Then we can come in and grab, and because it's going to be tanning over time, we go for timer. And we could, in theory, just run it off the output. That's the easiest way to do it. So for example, if you grab, let's go that, let's go, had it there. So right now it's that color, but we want it to be able to adjust the tan by making it darker. Now, ideally, you'd set this to, oh yeah, sorry, no, let's not use that. Where did I move the node to? Oh, I moved it up here, didn't I? Let's not use the node right now. Let's make it less confusing. If we, for example, set this to actually we'll set it to like a brownish color. So if we go there and then move that around to more there. Okay, that's brownish enough. So as you can see, it gets its tan. You sit there and fiddle it for days to try and get the exact color you want, but that's good enough. What you can do is choose, okay, how long, for example, in the sunlight will it take for it to tan up? You could say, just say it takes, that's 5 seconds, so we'll go 25 seconds. It will take 25 seconds to fully tan up. This controller. Just set the maximum tan you want it to better go to, 200. Run it straight from there to there. So by default it's at none. And because this will automatically run, all we have to do is just leave it as it is. The second you start the thing, if we play the thing, it take 25 seconds, that will slowly tan. I think you can notice it now. Yeah, you notice it now. It's tanning. That's the easiest way to do it. But I don't always necessarily like doing it the easy way. I like customization and that sort of stuff. So the way I would do it is use the timer in conjunction with a counter. And just say we want the full 10 as it was before, 25 seconds, so we'll send it 25. If we then move this to the progress and set this to 1 second and have it on repeat, and if we run the, I could just run it from signal finished to there, but I prefer the pulse. It's less likely to cause any issues. Pulse to plus. Doing that is exactly the same as what it was before, except for the fact that for every second this will pulse and add 1 to the counter. So it'll do the same thing. If we come out here, it's automatically running. Over time it will tan, so on and so forth. And that's why I do it, because it adds that little bit of extra functionality to it. Doing it this way, I can then say, if we grab a pass through and pass through to the top, when power is coming into here, will this progress? So that you can then turn around and say, if I grab a sensor or actually, what's it actually called? Sensor and inputs. Okay, that's a little I look at those things. So we want to go into that one, and we want to grab ourselves a trigger zone. I normally call them detection zones, whatever. When we open up its things, we get this sphere trigger zone. The green thing is what I call the trigger zone. The chip I don't call the trigger zone. But what we're going to do is go to the cylinder or the cube. We want something that we can add height to, and we're just going to grab it, and instead of going wider that way or towards us, we're just going to go height wise. So normally it would be a Y, but sometimes X, Y, and Z's are messed up. But we do it like this, and we don't want it at the bottom as well. So let's go to the bottom and go like this. So right now we've got a detection system of above us, and we can tell it to detect anything. So we turn around here and go only visible uh, and both. Only a thing that is visible above us, and if it is either collidable or not collidable above us. So if you put a fake shelter, it doesn't. You can still go through it. That's still fine, and it's going to take any of these. If you click on the all, it will. You need to have all them for it to say yes. Okay, I can detect that. But this, it's on any. So if any of these are detected, it will then go, okay, there's something in this zone. Don't do it. So right now, if I turn around and say, right, if there's anything in that zone, this is why I like the not gates. You can turn around and say this, and if you run that to there, let's change let's change this guy. Oh, this guy's color. Because we're running it through that, I'm going to change it to a color where it's more noticeable. So I imagine it's tan. It's going to be more of a green. We'll make it a blue teal. That'll do. It's just so that while it's playing, you can see it. But if anything is in that zone there, it will detect the thing. But we want it to be above the thing. So ignore that chip for now. We want it to be above that. So if we place this, there to about there, to about there. Let's align it, and let's take it down a little bit. Just actually no, we don't want there. And then we'll get this up. That is not aligned at all, but it doesn't matter. It's not that bad. It's just for showing us. So right now, if anything in that zone will tell it that it is no longer to power, because it's a NOT gate, no longer to power the timer, which will stop this in its tracks. So if I then grab, because that cube, or this one is obviously labeled as something, we can grab, let's grab that. We'll grab one of these, make it like that, and place it. Okay. And we want it big enough to go, okay, it's going to give a shelter. So we go that. And we can make sure it's as one of those labels. We don't have to, because technically it's also going to be looking, where are we? It's going to be looking for an unlabeled as well. So as it is right now, it should detect that. But it's got to be visible. So that's got to be lit, and it can be either detected, collidable or not collidable. So that can be on or off. The labels, I'm just going to make sure we're going to go object, and just to make it simpler too, we're going to make sure that it's here. All this stuff here doesn't matter. All this stuff here doesn't really matter. We're going to choose here though, and make sure that it's not a controller sensor, because right now that is classified as an object, but it's not a controller sensor. So if we go just say that, you see it's flashing all of them. Because this bottom one, if you look, there, it's an unlabeled, and it is looking for an unlabeled. If I untick that, it's no longer checking for the unlabeled. Same with the object itself. This object here, if this here is labeled as something, so just say we make that a scenery or a machine. Just say well, machine. But if we turn machine, hello, label machine. Because I've still got scenery ticked. Okay, so that there is classified as just the machine. So it's not going to detect the machine, and it's not going to detect the labeled. So as it stands right now, the only thing that this is going to detect is that object. So if I now, as it is right now, come in here and go to play. I closed the other one down, didn't I? Let's bring it up so we can see it. Just so you can see it ticking over. Like this, back it out. Okay. So as you can see, it's unpowered because it's got shelter. So it's not getting, in this case, sunburnt. If we remove it from the area, it's no longer sheltered. It's ticking over and it's slowly getting sunburnt. As you can see, it's going, because I changed it to blue so you can see it. It's going blue. And anytime it steps back into the shelter, it stops. And because we're using this secondary method here, it won't change. If you're running into the timer, when you unpower it, that time will then be put out to 0. Like if I bring it now and go from here to wrong one there, bring it into the output, it's back to 0. And if I move it out, it's pulsing, but then it's covered. That's why I prefer this method. It's more user friendly when it comes to that sort of stuff. So do that and do that. And if you want to go one step further, anytime it's sheltered, you could turn and say, okay, when it's sheltered, to untan. All we then have to do is copy this one. Let's clone it. We can then run it when something above it is detected. That is on up. We're not going through the not gate, and we just one into the other one to minus. So as you can see, when it's 10, but when it's out in the sun, it'll gain its tan. Let's turn that off. So it'll tan like that, and in a second this goes within the zone, it's in shelter, it'll lose its tan. Now obviously you'd adjust the times of what you want it to be. The same can be said for thirst, hunger, that's energy, that's just like, can all be using this exact same thing. The only change would be the input. For food, for example, if you want this to be food, you'd have it, this one here would be its burn. So you turn around, label it burn. So whenever you're not, in this case, eating, so you're out doing stuff, you're slowly burning energy. And when you start to eat, which is that, it will switch over to this one, which will be, we'll say feed. Now, obviously, it wouldn't be in this situation. It would be along the lines of, instead of having that, let's take that off. In fact, let's delete that and delete that. And let's run a pass-through for that. And run that into there. So right now, we can have that one active or that one active. So just say we want to add a ability to eat. So we can turn around and say, okay, controller input, let's make it a remote circle, gonna eat. And when you're not eating, which is where the not gate comes back in again, so when you're not doing that, it's a slowly burn. Now, in this situation, you'd have this be every 5 seconds. And this one, we can turn around and say every half a second. And just to make it so that the eat isn't, you can't just hold it and eat as much as you like, we're going to grab this one, the signal manipulator, and we're going to add a pulse of, now the timer's set at half a second. So if we wanted to do 3 or 4, we've got to take that into account. So let's make it a, let's go point, no, let's rewind it. Let's go 0.1. So if I do that and then have it pulse for 1 second, it should then do, because that's 10th of that. So it should pulse 10 times. So in doing this, and if I run the signal from there and there to there, when I press circle, it'll then put a pulse long enough that 10 cycles, which will add or take away 10 from that. And because 25 is the max, if you hit 25, it's not going to do anything. It'll just hit max. So this changing here, that'll be you exhausted or starving or whatever. So let's go one further and add a bar HUD, what do you want to call it? So just say we want to make it a hunger bar. We'll make it simple. We want it to be, when it's full, you're fully fed, and when it's got none, it's as small as you can get it. What we're going to do is grab the number display, and we're going to grab this stuff and turn all this stuff off for now. So it's just a number. Let's make it white so it's visible. Let's turn the shadows on so you can see it even if it's on a white background. It's just so that if you're in a shot, like if you look up at the sun, if that happens to be on the sun, you can see it. The reason I leave the shadow on. If you then say, okay, we don't want progression and we don't want full, we want this number. Let's run that into here. So whatever this number is what it's going to display. Now if you want it to be of, you can then grab a text gadget and go like that. Make sure we copy the other settings, so that, and that. This would be white. Then let's turn that on and that on. And let's move this from here to, say, there somewhere. And we want it to be an of. So what we're going to do is grab a copy of the first one. And just move it to the side a little bit. And then grab it and move it to the side. Too far. So when the HUD will be displayed, let's just have them all turned on, it's going to be that. Let's move that so it's... Ideally you'd line it up with the grid and everything, but there and there. So that is the top one, and let's... so it's this number of that number. So when you get a play, it's 0 of 5, and every 5 seconds, that one, you can then do damage to your character. But because we put the other stuff in, this stuff in, we can tell it to switch from burn and to go feed. So in doing so, whenever it gets a certain number and I need it to feed back up, remembering that we had it set to 10, it will do a 10 to that. So if I hit circle now, it'll heal those 2 easily. But we don't want it too easy, so let's change the number. It's at 0.1, and that's for 1 second. Let's do half that, 5 points. So then we'll go 0.5. So now it's only going to heal 5 points of these. So as it slowly fills up, get the 4, 5. Come on, one more. Okay, there's the 6. If I hit circle, it's fed my character 5 points. Now obviously that is the wrong way around. We don't want it to be going up, we want it to be going down. So if we come back into here, the counter part and that part doesn't change, but we want to change what this is displaying, because what the game doesn't have to change. It's what we are getting told is what we want to change. So I'm going to grab another manipulator here, Manipulate. Now there's two ways I do this. I could just get this and go invert, and then run it from the count number. Go like this, and then go to there. That's one way you could do it. But my preferred method would be with a calculator. And because we want it to be displaying the whole hunger thing, you don't have to do all this. Get rid of that one. Get rid of that one. Have just the one number display. And we're going to grab from there, we're going to go whatever the one number is minus whatever another number is. And because we're going this way, we're going to go, we want, let's make sure I get this right. I think it's that one goes to the top and that one goes to the bottom. No, I think it's the other way around because we want it reversed. Go that, then that. Yes, that's why we want it. So right now, the number that comes out of here should be 25. When it's minus 25. And every second it should change. Minus 24. Okay, so what have I done? It has to be the other way. I must have had it right the first time. Yes, that looks better. So yeah, okay, I had it right the first time. So every second it's going to go down, which is what we want because it's how our fed meter, our energy meter, whatever we call it. And whenever we get to a point of I better eat, hit the button, it tops it back up. And remembering we had it set at 5, all adjustable and everything like that. So we could do the whole shadow thing, and we could do the hunger thing, all using just that little bit of mechanics there. If we come back in, and we want to make this a bar that's a slidey bar, my preferred method is using a keyframe. When it's full, we want it to be a large bar. When it's empty, we want it to be a short bar. So because the timer is going up, we want it to, as it goes up, to shorten. So we're going to grab this one's, we'll just use, excuse me, the background. That's the easiest way to do it. Use the background, and then we'll go black. We'll turn its transparency down. This is all however you decide to do it. Now, you could have it feed in both directions, but we're going to do it single direction. So we're going to go over to the thing, we're going to choose, we're going to go centered, and so we don't want that. We don't want this one here, we want the top one, we want to go that. So if you now go into the, wrong one, into this one and go auto fit, you can now adjust how wide it is. So you set it at its shortest point, align it to where you want it. Now that's the shortest point we want to go. But because we want it to go backwards, we're going to grab it and move it to our longest point. So we'll say that far. Then we're going to grab a keyframe, add the keyframe while it's recording. So while that records up, we'll just shorten it to our shortest point we want it to go to. Actually, that sounds good. So it changes. Boom. Then we run that keyframe into the progression thing. And as this progresses through its counter, this will slowly raise, which will shorten the bar. So when I go back in, the bar is big because I'm fully fed. Every 5 seconds, I will lose 1 point. There it goes. And the bar will shrink. When I get to a certain point, I feel like I need a feed. Hit the button. It tops it back up again. So that's a simple food. You can do this for energy. You could have this be the energy. So whenever you're walking around and stuff like that, it's slowly going down. And then when you want to better rest, have your puppet character, whatever, sit down or stop whenever you stop moving. That does that. And if you're going to do it for a constant, So if this was on a puppet, for example, let's grab a basic puppet. Okay, there we go, it's a basic puppet. And of course this one has its own stuff in it. We're going to go, yeah, let's place it, just place it above its head for now, but we want it to be in the puppet. There we go. The cable going to here, I'm not going to worry about it. It should still, actually, if I delete that, should be fine. We're not going to use this remote one. We're going to go in and use the puppet. We're going to use the motion of the puppet. So, as before, we're not going to have the counter. We're going to have this as a simple yes and no, because we don't need to do it, because it's going to be when the puppet's moving or not. So, as it is right now, if the puppet is not moving, and when the puppet is moving, it's going to be inverted. Because as it stands right now, it's going to be continually burning. Or not burning. Actually, no, we can leave it as we want. We can leave it as it is right now. We just have to make sure we wire it up to the opposites. Let's grab into here and grab the puppet interface. And because it's going to be a burning when it gets the signal, when it doesn't get the signal, so we want it to burn energy when it doesn't get the signal. So we're going to have to go from the idle for that. So we've got idle strength. And we're going to run that into there and remove that. So the amount of idle the puppet is doing should show the amount of signal that comes in. And this is getting signal if there's a yes there. That is getting a signal if there's a no there. So if I'm not standing still, it will burn the energy off. So that counter should go down when I start moving. If I do anything, that puppet will burn energy. There you go, it's down to 4. If I stop, it will gain the energy back. Now obviously in this situation, we also want to adjust the speed between the two. So the energy getting back, that is super quick. We don't want it super quick. So let's go 1 second to get the energy back. And the burn, we go a little bit less. So I got 0.8. So if the puppet's just standing there, it won't burn any energy. If you start walking around, any movement the puppet does, it will burn energy. That number will go down. 23, 24, and then if I stop, it'll get it back again. 24 and 25. So that is using pretty much the timer, the counter, a calculator, pass-through, and knock-out. That's kind of it. Oh, and a keyframe. The other gadget I do like to use, or the thing in here, like this one here, if you want it to be a switch to turn on and off, that is what I would use. I've showed it before, so I'm not going to show you this time. And the other one too, which is actually quite handy, is if I can, there it is, randomizer. Is a randomizer. Now, if you want it to be randomly something to happen, that's when this is used. And I would normally use this for something along the lines of dropping it on the stream I done with the apple falls out the tree. That uses a randomizer. Every length of time I've stipulated, which is a minute on the island one, it will then pulse this, say yes or no. If there's only 2, it's a 50-50 chance. If you come in here and turn it to a 3, that's 33.3% chance. So as a third percent, 1/3 of the time it will be that, 1/3 of the time will be that, 1/3 of the time will be that. These buttons here, they're more for like if you want it to be true random, or by default it's a no repeat. So it'll go this one, and then the next selection will go, okay, I can't do that one, I just done that one. So it'll be either this one or this one. Whereas shuffle should be, it'll go that one, and then it'll go, okay, I've got to shuffle it. So don't do that one again, do one of these two. But these two here is if that one's done, and then it does B, it'll go, with this one here, it'll go, okay, it can ignore the fact that the first one was A. It's just done B, so it can't do B against it, but it can do A or C. Whereas this one here will go A, B, except I've already done A, so it's a shuffle, so okay, it's got to be C. And then once C's done, it can go, okay, I can choose any of the three. And then true random means if it goes A, it can go A again straight away again. So it all depends on the outcome of what you want. All this sort of stuff, I believe, don't quote me on this because I haven't played with it, because it's relatively new options, is how much of a chance each of these selections are. So, for example, if it's true random, and just say you want it to favour B, for example, you've got to turn the weight of B up, and it will favour B. Turning the weight down should be less favourable towards that. I believe that's the way it works. Now, I didn't create the game, so I might be slightly wrong with that, but I believe, from my knowledge, that's the way that works. Exclusive gate, couldn't tell you how that works. The calculator is like that calculator and that calculator. They're basically the same thing, except for this one here. Three options. Basically that, and that's it. I'm not sure why they call this a wide calculator, and it's only got this sort of stuff, whereas this is a standard calculator. Anyone who does maths could tell you. But they're both calculators. They both kind of do the same thing. When it comes to sensors per se, the only ones I really use regularly is obviously that one. Tags. And we've got receivers and senders. And then you've got these two down here and that if you want. This is also very handy. All this other stuff here, I don't use a great deal of. They have the uses, like the laser scope. If you use a laser scope, you can tell it to look in a certain direction. At the moment, it's looking straight up. You can say, point at tags. Grab a tag. Let's label the tag look. Turn that on. If I then choose look, it's going to look at the tag. But yeah, this is where this is handy. If, for example, where'd I put that? Wait, did I delete it? I must have deleted that disk thing. It's alright. Wow. Okay, let's make another one. We'll grab a cube, because that'll work. Okay, then let's just make sure the cube is, we'll say for example, a wall. Now obviously you don't have to make a wall, you just put an object there. But between the tag and the actual laser, there's an object. So we're going to go look at object. So just say we want it to be if it sees the tag to light up the head, we can turn around and go. We'll grab we use the knot again. If it hits something, it is to not light the head up. But let's just let's put the light on the head for now. Go 25 and do that. Okay. So excuse me. So if that actual sensor cannot see the tag, the tag, because it's hitting this, it should light up. But if I move the thing, it should then see the tag and should, no, when it doesn't see it, it should when the scope does not see the tag, it should the light should go out. Then when it comes up and it can see it, it should then light up. Now obviously it's where are we? Where's the there we go, detections. We've got to make sure that, like with the other one, that it can detect what it's allowed to hit. So it's going to be, again, both and visible. And as this is unlabeled, and you can see here it's not flashing and all that, X-ray mode off, so it cannot see stuff through it. And then we want to go to, let's make sure we label this as something. We'll go object. And then we can say if the object, where is it? There. Okay, that should be good. Hit distance, we're going to worry about. Hit position, we're going to worry about. So detection mode is not X-ray mode, so it can't see through things. And if the object it should be detecting should be the object, and this one here is object. So those, therefore, that should be able to be hit by the scope. That's pointing at that. Okay, that should be good. Consider players, local space. I'm not sure what they do, but I know what they do, but I'm not sure how they would affect it. So if I go now into play mode, it can still detect it. Why? What's going on with that? Oh, it's got something to do with the distance, okay. Because I'm far enough away, I can detect it, but from up close, the wall's in the way, so I can't detect it. It says the detection distance is the issue I'm having here. So it's to do with minimum range. Okay. If I do range, turn it up really high, then it can shoot the beam out a long way, and it detects it. Okay, I forgot to change just that. And the second the tag is visible, it will light up. So that is a method used for making an AI enemy, for example. You can tell that the AI is not to attack unless it sees you. So at the moment, it won't better see me. Easiest way to show that would be if I grab another puppet. A puppet. Boo and boo. Okay, new puppet. Let's get the tag. Place the tag on the puppet. That sounds good. Why did you not place on the puppet? God damn it! This PlayStation controls are fucking annoying. Okay, let's just make sure it's actually attached to the correct guy. Boom. Okay, so when that and that can see each other, we want this to come to me, but we don't want it to come all the time. So it's running off the following behavior. I'm not going to get into this part, but all we have to do is tell it that when that cannot see this, it's to turn that off. So if we turn around and go when it doesn't hit something, it can then do that. So doing that is when the laser can see the chip, is to activate, because we're not colliding with anything. So right now, that puppet will not follow me because it can't see me. But the second I walk out into its sight, it comes to me. So if you want to make a friend that follows you when it sees you, that's the way you do it. It'll follow me until around there. Can't see me anymore, won't follow. And because I've told it to be, where are we? That one, both collidable and not collidable. Even if this is not collidable, so if I turn around and say this is not collidable, Wrong one. This one. Not collidable. That object can now be walked into, but the puppet can't see me, so it doesn't follow me. So it'll follow me, walk this way, go through there. Oh, it's offside of me, doesn't follow. So you could use that for like a stealth game. When you're hiding behind a wall, or something like that. Can't see you, they don't come after you. I think that's kind of all the stuff in the way of gadgets. A quick little bonus thing here. They have a personal light. There is a method I've been using. If I just quickly make a nighttime scene, darkness and darkness. Let's do that. Okay, that's fairly dark, but you want to be able to see what you're doing. Use okay, so we want to use the head tracking and the spot. Oh, that's the camera. That's the wrong one. Spotlight. Get yourself the tracking tool. This is supposed to be more for like VR and stuff like that. But excluding that, this object will snap to your camera. So when you're possessing this puppet, so if I come in and possess the puppet, I've possessed the puppet. Wherever my camera is, like if I leave my camera, it's above it looking down at it. If I then go to edit mode, it's where my camera was. So using that, if you grab yourself the torch, or sorry, light, hover over it and snap it to the tracker, and then just make sure it's aligned. Now the alignment's not that important, just so long as where your camera's going to be, the light is slightly in front of, so that if you clip into something slightly, you're still going to see the light. If you put your light back here and there's a wall behind the camera, then the light will disappear. So you want it slightly in front, ideally. There, let's just tilt it down just a hair. Beam can be long. Actually, let's have it fairly narrow just so you can see it. Let's do that. And let's turn the brightness down. Just having that set up like this, now when I possess, there's always going to be this spotlight wherever I look. And now obviously the more centered you have that light, it'll be more where you're looking from. But as it is right now, it's from where it's just above the camera with a slight downward tilt. So that's why when I look up like this, you can see all the darkness below. If you want it more exact, just turn around and get the light here. Make sure it's flat, parallel to the ground. Get this and align it straight to the center. So you go there somewhere. That looks pretty close. The little white dot, if you're curious, is if you want to do the chip is placed in one spot, but you want the light to be somewhere else, just grab the dot. So doing that, I can place it exactly where the arrow is. That's pretty damn close. So now the light is centered on my camera, so it's exactly where I'm looking. So when I look up, it's more down towards the puppet. Normally, I wouldn't have it a beam like that. I would have it set more along the lines of wider beam, less distance, so we'll say 3 meters. I'd have the light less intense, 3 fade angle, that's wide. So it's more of an area. That way when you're doing that, this distance is more, it's at 3 meters, so I'm hardly going to see it. But if I was to come in, the light starts to shine. So for a scary game, it's like, this is the method I would use. Now obviously you could use the laser scope in conjunction with that and tell it that if the laser picks something up in a certain range, the light comes on or turns off or whatever. Same with the detection zones. You can say if something's in that zone, the lights to turn off. Because you can attach a detection zone to that. And you say when the puppet's in that zone, the camera is to zoom in or zoom out or something like that. I'm not going to go that much into it because I don't think there's that much of an extra use for it in the basis of what I'm trying to show here. But a quick example would be fog. If the camera's within a certain area of the puppet, you want the fog to fade off, you could turn around and say, okay, let's grab that, place it in the actual, wait, am I still in that? No, there we go. If I turn around like this and go, okay, no, alignment doesn't matter. So long as the actual zone itself is where you need it. So just say if we go like that, and we're going to go there, let's make it a cube. Like this. Let's give it more of this and more of this. So when this is detected, so if the puppet is actually, let's a little bit more. If the puppet is in that cube, in comparison to your camera, then we want the puppet to do something. So let's just say we'll grab the chest. We'll add a bit of. We'll say that. We can then turn and say, okay, if that is there, it's detected. Power that up. So by default, it's further away than that square was. But if we then zoom in, as you see, as it gets closer to the camera, the light goes on and off. You could use that for zoom and stuff like that. Now, ideally, the one you'd use is zoom. So you could turn around and say, when the puppet is in that square, instead of lighting the chest up, let's try that again. Like that again. Let's grab the puppet. Let's go in here. Let's go into here. Close that. Go into here. When the puppet is within that zone, we're going to give it. Wrong one. That one. We're going to have it adjust that. Now, you can't just wire it straight in because it's going to go the wrong way. So we're going to remove. Let's remove that and have a keyframe. Again, I love using keyframes. We're going to have it zoom right in. Actually, no, let's have it zoom out. We'll go to 4 meters. So when it gets in there, it'll do a zoom out, and it's gonna. We don't want to be a snap, so let's add a bit of blend to it. I call it blend. It's slow down and slow up. Okay, and then we'll power that up. So instead of the chest lighting up, whenever the puppet gets within that thing, it'll do a zoom out. As you can see, it's zooming out. Now, obviously, doing that, when you get right in the border, it does that bouncy bounce bounce. That's where are we? If we come into here, that's where if you come into here, this the fallout. If you adjust that, it'll be an ease in and an ease out, or it should be an ease in and an ease out. But obviously that changes the overall distance. Like I'm just standing there, and as you can see the bounce of the camera. The only fix for that I could figure is by slowing down the actual keyframe. If you make it so that the keyframe takes longer to trigger, so if you make it take a second to do either way, that'll ease it. Because it takes that much longer to get out and that much longer to get in, it eases it off. But if I now get the puppet in there, it'll try and zoom the camera out. And if the puppet is outside the square, it'll zoom the camera in. Now, obviously, you don't have to do the zoom. You can make it not zoom. You can make it camera angle. So let's just say, go here. Let's edit. Let's delete that. So it's going to stay at 3 meters. But instead of being that, let's angle it out. So we'll say 72 degrees. Yeah, sounds good. Just so you can see it. So all it's going to do now is it's not going to zoom in and out. It's just going to widen the view. So if I'm outside the thing, it's a certain angle. But if I zoom into the puppet, it will widen its view. I'm trying to think. I'll make it more extreme. I'll make it more extreme. So I go 52. Just make it more noticeable. So as you can, actually I might, because I changed that, didn't I? Because I added that buffer zone. Let's turn those buffer zones off. Okay. When I get in, you can clearly see the different focus it has. It makes it so more as visible. This is useful for things like when you get up close and you can't see stuff because your puppet's in the way. That allows for you to see more. But I think I've shown enough of the chips that are super useful that I use regular. I should be using more of the laser scope. That's like that thing. But to be honest, unless you're doing like a enemy detection thing, it's like, what usage do you have for it? A lot of people use it for like suspension in cars and stuff like that, because you can tell it that, as with this range here, you can say if it's only within, if the ground gets too close to the thing, it's to push up, and that can hold it at a certain height. And it's this similar idea to like a hover mechanic. So you could tell it to hover a material above the ground simply by going, if the laser scope, which only detects at a certain distance, it's to then do something, push something up, add a force, or something, whatever. And that's usually what the laser scopes are used for. I haven't had any great uses for them. It could be used as a weapon projectile shooty thing. So you could turn around and say, okay, when you pull your trigger, it's to shoot that out, and it could have a massively long range. And then if it hits something, if that something is, where are we in here? If that something is a enemy, it's to do damage to the enemy. So you could aim a gun, and if you're aiming off, it's not going to hit the enemy, so you won't do damage. So think like a first-person laser scope. It's kind of that. So there's nearly an hour. Hopefully something in here has helped somebody with one of their creations. Now, I'm no expert at all this. I'm still learning, but I'm hoping that what I've learnt has now imparted onto somebody else, and they have less stress, less struggles in learning the stuff. So if it does help, by all means, let me know. Send me a message on Dreams if you get stuck. If I know how to do it, I'll reply. If I don't know how to do it, I'll say I'm not sure how to do it, and we'll both learn. So I'm out here. Stay safe, and I'll catch you next time. See yous.